Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. A lot is happening in the region of Afghanistan, and today we're going to just do a freewheeling discussion with Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, a retired Director General from the Artillery, a thinker, and a writer, to discuss what exactly is the situation on the ground. There's so much confusion, there's so many players which are acting out. There's a little war happening in Panjshir. There are rumors of Pakistani boots on the ground. The ISI chief was in Kabul. The government formation seems to be a little delayed. The Iranians are not very happy with the Taliban. There are rumors of some airstrikes that have taken place, which have taken off from Tajik land, of course, Afghani pilots. There is just so much in this place. And to top it all, the Afghan Taliban has actually invited 5, 6 countries, which are, of course, it's nobody's guess, is China, Russia, Pakistan, Qatar, and Iran for their government formation. What will actually happen in this entire scenario is something all of us are going to debate. And let's see where this entire story lands up. And let's analyze to try and make some sense of what's happening on the ground. Sir, over to you. Why don't you just give us an introductory comment?
Yeah, thanks a lot. At the outset, I must say that now that the US withdrawal is over, right, the story is changing completely. I mean, that is something we have to understand, right? US is just sitting on the sidelines. There is a vacuum there, and it is that vacuum which is getting filled up. What are formulations or thinking processes or alignments where before the US withdrawal are gone? We're looking at a new paradigm. So what is this new paradigm? Let us analyze this paradigm. You touched upon all these. First, look at the politics of the whole story. Government formation. The Taliban is in control. Is the government being formed? There are reports of a government being formed, a council-based government being formed, like the Iranian Revolutionary Council, etc., etc. But there are reports of infighting. There are even, I read a report that Mullah Baradar was shot also, and he's lying wounded. It's not clear. How this government is going to evolve, it's not clear. The ISI chief has landed up to set up the government or whatever, influence the government setting up. There are reports that the Haqqani group is being propagated, right, against the Doha group, which is being now sidelined, right? So the Taliban itself is coming up as not a monolithic organization, but which is a mosaic, which is loosely held. While it appeared very monolithic when it was fighting against the outsider, right? Now that the outsider is gone, it's the cousin it's the brother versus the brother story which is coming out for power. So that's the politics of the whole story. Now, when you look at it, Taliban is not able to form a government because there is a resistance in the Panjshir Valley. Yeah, there are reports that Panjshir Valley has been overrun. The Amrullah Saleh whereabouts are unknown. From Tajikistan, some aircrafts are coming in. There is a resistance on overrun, a lot of haze. But one thing is coming out very clearly: there is a resistance. Okay, and in these insurgent guerrilla-like situations, land is no value. If there's an insurgency on in Panjshir and in the area right up to Tajikistan, no government in Kabul can be stable. There's an insurgency, right? That whether that insurgency holds land or not is irrelevant. So that is one part of the story. And the third thing which has come up is that there are reports, and they would be credible reports. I don't, at least there'll be 10% credibility in this, that Pakistan has put its special forces in and they're conducting air raids, right? If that be so, the first Pakistani boot has landed. And once the Pakistani boot lands there, it will not go back. It can't go back. Okay. So the Talibanis will not allow it to go back. They'll need that. Otherwise, they can't control the Panjshir resistance. I mean, it's like that. Now, there's also news that the Tajiks are reacting. In any case, the Tajikistan government has very clearly said they do not support the Pakistani involvement or its dominance of Kabul regime. So, now if Tajikistan is not interested, Russia will toe Tajikistan's line. And the other Central Asian republics will fall in place there. So that means there's a bloc forming there. Right. Then the Iran is not too happy about this whole story. Iran will not let Pakistan dominate Kabul. So that story is yet to start. They've just come out with one statement. So this government formation, the politics, the regional actors are all muddled. Right now, there's still chaos going on there. Right? Now, in this, Taliban has asked 6 countries to come in and help it form the government. Russia, Iran, China, Pakistan, Qatar, and I'm forgetting. What is the 6th? Okay, whatever. Now, these countries might help it form the government, but recognition has to come from somewhere else. If those countries are not involved in the government formation and don't approve, there's no recognition. If there's no recognition, there's no cash. So that is the politics and the international play which is going on. So it is chaos. Let's look internally. There are protests erupting all over. That is very clear. Even Dawn has reported that Taliban has fired on women on protests. There's problems of education, separate colleges, separate screens for in education, etc., etc. The people don't seem to be accepting whatever Taliban is doing. See, one has to understand something very fundamental about Afghanistan. Afghanistan, unlike many other countries, is a country of urban settlements. More cities and towns than villages. Taliban was controlling the village side. It is the urban centers which they have to control. They've taken over the urban centers militarily. But can they control it? Because their social measures are not something which the urbanites seem to be accepting. Okay. So there is a very, 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 in my view, way of thinking, there is amorphous kind of a situation. So there is a social contradictions of Afghanistan are coming up.
That's interesting, sir. Because one thing that you mentioned about these protests, there is some money coming in from somewhere which is backing up these protests. I mean, protests cannot be done without money. So there is somebody funding this resistance as well.
Look, I'll not go very far. You think USA will keep quiet? If you have humiliated USA, all it needs is a few dollars to fund a few protests. And the government will start coming to heel. Look, it's one thing to convince people that I am the best entity to evict the foreigner. But now that the foreigner has gone, he's got no play in whatever is happening. How do you control the masses? You have to govern. And from what I can make out in all TV channels across the thing, and when you see Afghan commentators speaking, the intelligentsia which existed in Afghanistan, the expertise to run the government which existed in Afghanistan is no more in Afghanistan.
It's gone.
Gone. Who will run the government? Mullahs? Mullahs can teach these Talibanis how to fight. How will you run the government? How will you clean the streets? How will you dispose the dead? I mean, fundamentals. How will you distribute rations? How will you distribute aid? How will you handle agriculture? How will you get water? People need basics here. Roti, kapda, makan. Banks don't have money. Or you can open a bank, but who will come with money? So all these fundamentals are missing. अब पाकिस्तान तो नहीं करेगा ना आके उसका खुद का तो हाल खराब है. So things are, everyone says, oh, well, everything will happen. if anything, I see a dark hole emerging. I mean, we can discuss this if you want.
No, that's true, sir, because at the end of it, a lot of people are actually saying it is a deliberate move by the US to pull out all the intellectuals from Afghanistan to ensure that the government or whatever they form will not run, because it is if you look at it, they've evacuated all the, the cream of the cream crowd from there, which were the people that were working in the government offices, the bureaucrats, the ministers, and so on and so forth. They've just taken out that entire cream. And
See, if I completely agree with you, completely. And what many of us have missed out in this entire commentary and analysis is that USA has done a withdrawal. It is that withdrawal might be militarily a duff withdrawal. I mean, that was a fiasco. Okay, politically a hasty decision and a confused decision. But the fundamentals of this withdrawal plan were already there with them.
absolutely,
They were very clear they were withdrawing. They would have made their fundamental plans of withdrawing and handling Afghanistan thereafter. Now that they are out of the equation, there's no more discussion on US role in Afghanistan. They will now pull the strings from outside. And they have all the strings. भाई घर तेरे पास है, पैसा भी चाहिए उसको चलाने के लिए.
Absolutely. So one of the things which you mentioned, and there is a block which is being formed, as per the, it's pretty much early to kind of put your stamp on it and say that it is being formed and stuff like that. But with the evidence which is coming out of Tajikistan going against the Taliban, the Iranians going against the Taliban, Russia will have to follow suit for the, safety and security for that region. Uzbeks are up in arms with regards to this entire thing. So you can see that some amount of movement is happening in that direction. One of the players which is outside this particular block, but a friend of all these people in the block, is China. Now it's going to be interesting to see that the Chinese are going to be trying to support the Taliban, where its own partners slash allies slash best friends would be supporting the other side. So there's going to be a bit of a crumb between this balance as well. What do you think about that?
See, China is not an outsider. China is an insider in this game because it's got a common border with Afghanistan. It's got huge interest in Pakistan, and it's got huge interest in the Central Asian Republics. It has already established a base in north of Wakhan corridor, military base in Tajikistan. Okay, I'm forgetting the name of that place, but they have one just north of
13 kilometers from
into the north of the Wakhan corridor. So they are an insider party. They have high stakes in Afghanistan. One, that's the first thing. They are backing completely whatever Pakistan is doing. Let's not have doubts about it.
Yeah.
They are backing Pakistan. So if you see Afghanistan, there is one bloc, which is the Central Asian Republic and Russia. Slowly there will be a bloc forming with their interests, spearheaded by Tajikistan. There will be a bloc slowly which will form from Iran, the Shia bloc. Okay, and then there will be a bloc of Pakistan and China. So these three interests will come in. It is a different thing that Taliban has called these 6 countries. In addition to these 3, it's called Turkey, Qatar, and I'm forgetting the name, right? Whatever. So Turkey, Qatar, and Russia. Turkey, Qatar, Russia, Iran, China, and Pakistan. These 6. They have called these 3 outsiders to come into the thing to form a government. That's all. Now, all these people have their own interests. So, and Taliban itself is, my way of looking at it, is not clear what it wants. It needs help to form the government. Huh? I mean, forget about the stability of the government. It needs help to form a government. So, this amorphous, loose jelly kind of a system will continue. And it is in this kind of a system that there will be breakdown of law and order, breakdown of civil services, breakdown of essential services. You will have humanitarian situations developing. This is bound to happen. Okay. So far, China, I mean, Pakistan backed by China have had the play. But going forward, what will happen to both of them is itself a question mark.
That one and their relationship with Russia as well is going to be into
Yeah.
That's going to be
We can discuss Pakistan and China separately.
As a matter of fact, I wanted to. That's my next question, sir, because a lot of talks are there about the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan now starting to finance the ETIM. They are getting money from various their own collection methods, if I may put it that way. But there are rumors about this branch formation happening because the Taliban in Afghanistan won't want to directly deal with the ETIM because of pressures from China or whatever it is. So they are trying to kind of outsource this to the TTP, and TTP is ruthless. I mean, one of the things that they've come out and done in the past couple of days, and within minutes of the incidents, they've taken up responsibilities for whatever has happened. How do you see that entire situation playing about, where the Chinese are going to be putting a lot of pressure on Pakistan to militarily act upon the TTP, apart from, as you mentioned earlier, the boots on the ground that the Pakistanis are going to be having in Afghanistan as well? So that's going to be a long stretch.
Yeah, we have to first understand the Pakistan situation at this point of time, as it is emerging.
Yeah.
Right. From the Pakistan situation, the corollary is the Chinese situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the Pakistan situation? Pakistan is fully committed to the Taliban. I mean, there are no two ways about it. They've committed troops in all those places. The Pakistani focus is on how to put a government of its choice in Kabul.
Correct.
Period. That's their one-point agenda at this point of time. Now, having put a government of its choice in Kabul, its stability, it has to be ensured. Now, its stability, it can only ensure if it puts army on ground. Boots on ground have to go there. Otherwise, this story will not finish. It is very clear that that resistance force is not going to be cowed down by Taliban fighters, because they are the same breed. Okay, they're not going to this thing. And the Afghan army, the S-12 Afghan army, were trained to some extent. They militarized people. Not all of them will get affiliated to Taliban. Even if 25% don't get affiliated to Taliban and join the resistance force, there's a guerrilla war happening.
Yeah.
Okay. If the cadre, I forget 25%, even 20,000 go out of the 350,000 which is rumored. Even 20,000 people go with their arms and ammunition, and they would have created caches all over. They're not fools. You have an insurgency going on in northern Afghanistan. And that insurgency can only be overcome if you have regular troops on ground, not bloody Taliban type of characters.
And even then, it's a big question.
It is a big question. So Pakistan has to commit itself. Already some commitment is there. It will go on. This will right. Now, when this is happening, an important thing, if you see the violence on the Durand line in the past 2 months, 3 months, 2-3 months, what the three distinct features which have come out along the Durand line. One, TTP is very active. It has carried out about 5 to 6 attacks on Pakistani forces, IEDs, ambushes, firing on the border post, the FC, that is their constabulary, frontier constabulary. And one happened the day before, yesterday or day before, where 20 people were injured and 2 people died, right, in a bomb blast. So all these are happening. They are happening every second, third day as I read it. So that is one. Second, the Baluch rebels are taken off. They are knocking off something or the other. Today, there was another IED blast in Waziristan. So something or the other, every second, third day, there is a violent incident happening in that Durand line. Waziristan, Baluchistan, that belt. Quetta. Then the Chinese are being targeted. Third. The fourth thing is there is a strain of sectarian violence which has happened in central Pakistan, in Bawalpur and all that during the Muharram time. Some bomb blast with that outside that JUD fellow's house and all that, if you remember. So there are 3-4 types of violence happening in Pakistan, which destabilizes Pakistan, whichever way you look at it. Right. Now, add to this, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan has very clearly said that they want a Pashtun autonomy and whatever they want. The Afghan Taliban will not go against TTP because the TTP helped the Afghanistan Taliban.
Correct.
And they are in the same, they all, look, they are from the same seminaries and madrasas of that area.
Pashtun
They're
Wali.
all schoolmates. No, they're all schoolmates, classmates. Oh, they're, they're, to put it crudely, they're bomb chums from the same university. Why will they go against each other and kill each other? So this is one story which is happening along that belt. So that belt is going unstable. If that Durand line belt is going unstable, and Pakistan has to put boots across into Afghanistan, where does Pakistan go? It's getting sucked in that side.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that is one. Now the corollary is China. Let's look at the Chinese angle. The Chinese and Taliban are on one this thing. Taliban has come out and said China is our most important,
financial partner. Yes, sir.
Partner and all. They're looking at money. They'll say everything. They'll say no, ETM ko out kar diya humne. Uyghurs ko will not allow. They are saying no, will not allow any outside forces to use Afghanistan. How will they do it? You can say anything you want. I can say I'm king of England here. Does it make me? I'm still a retired Fauji in Chennai. That's it. Okay. So they might have said, no, we have thrown out all Uyghurs and ETIM people from our organization. Now, if you have thrown them out, where will they go? There are competing interests there. ISK has there. Al Qaeda is there. TTP is there. These are all again.
Yeah.
They can join ISK, they can join TTP, they can join Al Qaeda, they can join the Baluch people, anywhere, anyone. I mean, it is not as if they can not join anyone, they'll join anyone. From this thing, they might even go and join the Northern Resistance Force. Look, the fact is that all these people have no allegiance except to their own cause. It's not a loyalty to a flag or a nation. It's not their loyalty to their cause and their interests. So ETIM is active. If Taliban throws them out, they'll go into ISK or they'll go to TTP or whoever, which means the situation is even worse for whom? For China and Pakistan. If they're smart, they'll not attack anyone in China as of now. They'll make all the attacks on Chinese and Pakistan.
Strengthen up, regroup.
They'll start hitting CPEC, which is vulnerable. Sooner or later, China will have to come in. I mean, everyone talks of copper mines and all this nonsense. They'll hit that copper mine only. But they have time on their side. They'll wait.
Correct, sir.
No, everyone says, China will go and extract minerals from Afghanistan. How will they do it? Who will give them security? Will they provide their own security? If they provide their own security, boots on ground, right? Besides all this, there is an interesting article which I read from one of the Chinese commentators. He feels that as China extends its influence and it is building its, I won't say capabilities, its assets all over the world. For example, it's got Hambantota port as a lease. So far, there's no attack on Hambantota port. What happens if tomorrow there's an attack on it? I mean, let's forget the attack. If I go there or some third-rate guy goes there and bursts two firecrackers, it's an attack, no?
Yeah, if it can happen in New Zealand, why not there, sir?
Why not there?
Yeah.
Right? Now that happens, who will protect Hambantota port? Sri Lanka, which is going through a food crisis and an emergency. They'll say, yeah, you got it, it's yours, protect it. So that means boots on ground. So similarly, wherever China acquires interests and assets, the view in China itself is slowly we'll have to start protecting them. As China becomes a superpower, it will be open to attacks.
Vulnerability, yes.
Its vulnerability will increase. Like it happened with USA.
US.
Like it used to happen with USSR. Got it?
That'll be an interesting scenario, sir.
No, it's not an interesting scenario. This is the future.
Yeah, yeah. One of the
Okay.
biggest things which comes out from here, sir, is that the West has the only capacity to actually bankroll or provide for some aid. They've got the institution set up for provision of aid and so on and so forth for Afghanis. So it's not possible for the
I will
Taliban.
not, again, you have to look into the geoeconomics of it.
Mm, mm,
If you look at the geoeconomics of this whole story, who can give aid? A rich man only. A poor man can't give aid. Poor man can share what he has. If he has, one plate of rice, he'll give half a plate to the other guy and eat half. That's all he can do. It is only the rich man who can give. Who are the rich people? The rich is still in the West. Their economies might be small, but per capita income is huge in the West. Only they can give aid. You think China can give aid? Where has China given aid? No, show me one country where China has given aid. Because Chinese per capita income is low.
Yes.
They can't afford aid. I mean, they'll give some aid, but they'll seek something in return. There's a bargain. So, the Chinese aid into Afghanistan to develop Afghanistan will be very limited. If you don't have aid, you don't reach out to the people. And the Chinese model so far is that they're not bothered about the people and all that. They are interested in handling the government.
Human rights.
They're not interested in human rights. They're not interested in how the government governs their own country. Like in Pakistan, they're not interested in how Pakistan is governed. They're only interested in their projects. And their deal is only with the generals of Pakistan and the government in Pakistan. Right? So similar, if they use the same model, and that's the model they've used, say in Sri Lanka also. When the Rajpaksas came into power, they came back. When they were not in power, they were thrown out. They didn't bother about what happened in Sri Lanka, or for that matter, anywhere in Kenya or wherever. They are more or in Malaysia, for that matter. They are interested in the government. They deal with the government in power. In Afghanistan, which is the government in power today? So, if you don't have a government in power, then one more very interesting thing which has come out in the news and in analysis. The West is dealing with the Pakistan. It has not recognized the Pakistan. The West is dealing with the Taliban. It doesn't mean they're going to recognize Taliban.
Yeah.
They have said that very clearly. Dealing with them at this point of time is one thing, recognition is another thing. So unless there's a recognition, there'll be no diplomatic activity. There'll be no aid. There'll be some aid which will come in. So we'll see.
That's what one actually looks at this entire situation. Actually, sir, the one final point that I'd like to discuss about is it's going to be interesting to see when the Pakistanis are going to be trying, and they're trying to pull off a Turkey during the Syrian crisis, where they're trying to take in all the refugees and ask for the money. The world is kind of coming and giving them small amounts of aid. I think he's trying to just mull over his next quarter in terms of his remittances and stuff like that. Keeping that aside, sir, once the West actually has direct contacts with the Taliban, and the minute they form the government there, or whatever ragtag government that they're able to do, the analysis that comes out from this entire thing is the West would be dealing with Taliban directly. Currently, a lot of people are dealing with Pakistan is to basically get their citizens out from there. And that is something which has been stated in very, very small lines because they don't want to kind of, put it out there. That's one. On the other side, there is also talks of normalization with some sort of normalization of the Western relations with Iran. The French are doing it, the Germans are doing it. They're trying to kind of mull this down because that's going to be another region where they can push in a lot of influence into Afghanistan and kind of get some semblance of control. How do you see that entire thing opening out for the
See,
Iranians and
yeah, I think that's a very, the Europeans are smart about it.
yeah,
Europeans, how the French, Germans, and the UK play out is going to be interesting.
yeah,
Uh, First and foremost, what one can make out is everyone is clear that aid will not be given to Pakistan. Through Pakistan is over. That story is over.
Hmm.
Okay. What they're dealing with Pakistan for whatever little is to get people out, like you said, that that story is still unfolding. Maybe given another 2 weeks, that whole thing will get over.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, they already UK and France have said we will have a UN mandated zone in Kabul through which aid will flow directly to people. They also don't visualize this even in going through Taliban. The undertone is they might not give it to Taliban. They might say, we'll not give you, we'll give it to people. Tell me, we will give it to whom we want. Why should I give it to you? Or you don't get it. And they're getting UN. No, so there's a undertone to this whole story. That means Pakistan is out.
correct.
What does it mean? Pakistan is out. That the aid will go directly into Kabul. Maybe Taliban will be allowed to tap some of the aid. And they are going to give kind. They're not going to give money. They're going to give rice. They're going to give potatoes or whatever. Humanitarian assistance. Right? So that means siphoning of that is difficult.
Very.
Very difficult. And then they're opening Iran, which means that whatever Iran wants, so they'll accommodate Iran's ideas. We also need to remember that the UK and France have good equation with Iran, especially France. Ayatollah Khomeini, I'll go back to the 70s. Ayatollah Khomeini, where was Ayatollah Khomeini before the Iranian Revolution? He had sought asylum in France. He was in Paris. The French connection with Iran has not vanished.
Correct.
See, something which very many people don't realize. France is not part of NATO.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow the American line.
Yeah.
It is more interested in the EU. It has its own sphere of influence. Its integration with its erstwhile colonies is still strong.
Very.
It has still a hold on them. It gets revenues from its colonies still. It might be, if you see their French football team, half of them are from the colonies. So their links are pretty deep. So if they are opening up with, if Iran is saying something, be rest assured Iran will get some backing from the French and others in EU. So an axis which is going to avoid Pakistan China is coming up. It will come up. Like we discussed earlier, you will see a faction Iran based, Central Asian Republic based, backed by Russia, China, Pakistan. That this is
Three
how
blocks.
three blocks will start shaping up.
And there's an interesting breaking thing that has come out right now. There is some announcement of government. Of course, these rumors have been flying around for.
No, that's okay.
now.
That some government will.
The Prime Minister is supposed to be Mullah Hassan. The Deputy Prime Minister is Abdul Ghani Baradar. Defense Minister is Mullah Yaqub, of all the people. Interior Minister is Sirajuddin Haqqani, which gives a lot of focus to Pakistan. and the foreign minister is Amir Khan Mutaki. Now, that is a very interesting thing because there was this infighting between them. So I think the Akhundzada has pulled the reins onto his own hands in terms of if this comes out to be true. The kind of variants of the government which is being touted around the world today just shows you that there has been quite a lot of disturbance in terms of who is supposed to lead this thing. And of course, the Pakistanis want to get the Haqqanis in, and there's just a lot of confusion.
Look, it's just a government which has been formed. Let us see how it goes.
And that's the big point, sir.
See, sitting here, I can also form a government.
Yeah.
I mean, government formation is not an issue. How will this government behave
and run?
What is the on ground? How will it function on ground? It's one thing to be in government and one thing to be running a government.
That's going to be interesting. So this is, I think we've gone through a pretty nice analysis of the situation on the ground with regards, and we're not corroborating to any rumors. We've kind of taken the rumors, discussed if they are possible, discussed if they're not possible. The truth can only come out, once things are, of course, out in the open. But there is so much happening in this plane, such a fast-paced development. One has to keep into account the various information coming out from various different sources, and that's what I think General Shankar has done with regards this discussion. Sir, you want to say something?
Yeah, you see, the thing is that if you read across news channels, you'll find various opinions coming. Various opinions, some for, some against a particular viewpoint. Okay. And many news reports are based on hearsay. Many news reports are based on fragmented information.
Correct.
And when you piece all this together, what emerges is that confusion still prevails. It will take time to settle. The dust will take a long time to settle. It has just started. We've just started to understand the extent of the dust. Let's wait.
I think that is very, very, pertinent to the situation right now. And one can see, as I mentioned before, also one can see some force working against the Taliban within Afghanistan as well. It is not just a coincidence that the ISI chief is in Kabul and there are protests in Kabul. So there is something happening there. There is somebody guiding these people. There is some money coming out. I mean, you can't just print posters and put flyers and get those banners up in overnight. It's something that is being planned, and one has to just study the situation to see how these activities are going to open out and what kind of effect it will have on the region. So thank you so much for this wonderful talk. We'll obviously try and do more of these freewheeling discussions to try and analyze the amount of information that is coming out from Afghanistan and its neighboring countries. Till then, sir, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thanks a lot.